This is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you today is this. Now, I'm only showing you this because it's just an amazing colour. And this is a very good example of how the seasons on Mars change the colours of what we're looking at on the surface. I'll briefly show you this because these are just amazing. These dunes are in the North Polar region of Mars. And what I've got here, I've done a sort of time map here with the different seasons over over 2 or 3 years, and you can see these dunes in the winter are sort of dark blue colour, and they change throughout the seasons, and then we get to summer and they go amazingly bright yellow. You can see this one here where they've gone yellow, and then when we get to this one they've gone yellow and blue. The best part of this image to look at, and you can follow all the links down below to get to these Gigapans to check out yourself. The best one to look at is this one here. And you can actually rotate these images as well, which is pretty cool. If you want to look at them upside down or whatever. This is absolutely out of this world. Now, these are supposedly just normal frosty dunes in the northern hemisphere, in the sort of polar region of the north. And they are actually yellow. They may not be quite as yellow as this. I think this is partly down to the way that the light's catching it as well. But they are actually yellow, but they go very blue in the winter. They go a sort of bluish colour. But here we've got a mixture of colours here, with this blue and the yellow at the same time. Absolutely insane. So I just thought I'd show you this so you can check this out yourself. You can follow the links down below, like I said, and take your own screenshots and have a good look, because some of this stuff is very strange. The ice on these dunes, when it melts, it actually turns into a gas and leaves these kind of black stains everywhere, which are quite incredible when you look at some of them. They are amazing to look at. And in reality, they're even more yellow than this. I've actually toned this down a bit because it was too garish. Absolutely amazing colours. I mean, the point is that these high-rise images from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter are very detailed and in high colour. Not all of them. A lot of them are black and white. A lot of them are sort of in red filter and stuff like that, and everything goes a sort of browny orange colour, which is what they do with a lot of these images. And often NASA will show you the red ones or the brown ones, but they won't show you the actual full colour ones, which is deceptive, I think. And they give a false impression of Mars. And this has been going on for decades. They've given this sort of false impression that Mars is just kind of brown and red and not much to see, and it's all a bit sort of dark. And in some areas it is. But in other areas, at certain times of year, it's very bright and colourful, and this is a very good example of that. The level of colour we have here is off the scale, and it's almost hard to look at because it's so colourful, and the details are quite stunning. You can see every little ripple in the sand. I mean, I've never seen yellows like this anywhere on Earth. And this, in fact, is probably toned down a bit, if anything. I've actually desaturated the colour slightly in this because it was too much. It's just too much. It kind of overloads your eyes in many ways. Now, this is a different part of Mars. This is nearer the central part of Mars, nearer the equator, in an area called Melas Chasma. Now, this isn't that far away from what I showed in my previous video that looks like a port or harbour area. Okay, this is the same area, but it's a very large area and very diverse. And a lot of it was underwater, and we got lots of complex geology and stuff going on the ground, but in very good detail. Now, a lot of it's this sort of gold colour, and you've got sort of blues and golds and greens and browns, even purples and reds and everything. You've got all sorts of amazing colours in here. But we've got highly complex material on the ground, and some of it is very strange indeed. And you've got these sort of large areas of what seems to be clay or something that looks, when you get in close, it looks almost like giant fungi or fungus. It really does. I'm sure most of it's just rock, but it really does, when you look at the colour data here, look very complex. And then we've got these weird rib-like structures in the ground here. I'm not entirely sure what's caused these, but we've got these kind of depressions in the ground, which are kind of worm-shaped, as if they were giant worms or something that have died and then fossilised. But I don't think that's necessarily true. That's just what they resemble, because they have these like rib-like structures, cellular kind of structures to them, okay, and they're quite complex, and some of them look shell-like seashells, and some of them look kind of worm-like, but they go right into the ground. Now, what I think was happening here is this was probably some kind of thermal vent or thermal area where there was a lot of gas bubbling up from below the surface of Mars, and then bubbling up in mud, and then causing bubbles and funny shapes in the sedimentary layers of mud and clays, which then harden later on and bait into a sort of mudstone and sort of hardened clays on the ground. But there's also other complex geology going on here. It's really complicated, and it's quite hard to work out what you're looking at. And then I spotted this thing here. Now, unfortunately, not all of this is in colour. Only part of it is. This is just mental. Absolutely mental. Now, I've taken some clips of this, and they're in sort of 7K here. So these are huge images, and this is taken from the Gigapan, the black and white version of the Gigapan, okay, which is actually in better detail. And you can actually see that there's something very strange going on here, but it's hard to see until you zoom in that we have some of these weird kind of rib-like structures going across here. And then in the opposite direction, we have dunes that have formed going across this way, forming like a lattice pattern. Now, this is very similar to a video I did a couple of years ago. I did a video called the Mars Cocoon, I think it was called, where we had a crater which was similar to this. We had a sort of crater area, and we had these weird sort of vine-like structures going across it in one direction. Then we have dunes going across at an angle like we have here, right? In a cross lattice kind of pattern. And it looked like that some of the structures were actually vines and not just dunes going across. And I think we have something similar here, perhaps. In colour, you can actually see these better because the colours bring out some of the detail, like we've got here. I've got green, blue, brown, red, all sorts of different filters, and I'm going to flick through some of them here and show you what I'm seeing, because this has got me absolutely perplexed. I'm calling these shard-like things going across ribs, okay? Because they've got a rib-like structure to them. They look similar to some of the millipede dunes that I've shown before, but they're not the same. And when you zoom in, you've got things on the ground that look like giant worms or vines or something else, right? Let's zoom right in. We have here some kind of weird object here. It's slightly dome-shaped. And then we have this thing here, which looks like a tube or a worm, like a giant worm that comes over this kind of rib that's going across. And then there's another kind of worm-like thing here. And once you start looking at these things, you think, hang on a minute, are these supposed to be dunes over some complex rib-like geology? Because when you start looking up close, it's like, well, hang on a minute. This looks way more complex than that. And what we seem to have is that some of them seem to go under and over each other, like we have here, in the middle here. And some literally go over these kind of rib-like things that are going diagonally up, left to right, across this way. And what it reminded me of is some of the art that you see by artists like H.R. Geiger, the guy who did the design, art and design for the original Alien film and Alien series. And this reminded me of him and his artwork immediately. Okay? I mean, it's quite nightmarish and weird and very alien looking. Now, the weird thing is, we have these ribs going across diagonally left up to the right corner here. But then when you look to the outside of this thing or feature, we have these other ribs going this way. Okay? You can see them there, coming the other way, right? And it's almost like we're looking at some kind of weird structure on the ground that's collapsed. And it's mind-boggling. I really can't work out exactly what it is. And the detail in here is quite off the scale. You can see every little ripple, every little dune, every little feature, and some of these things look like worms or vines or something. Now, when you look at the whole area, you can actually see this thing here. It's got depth to it, and those other kind of rib-like structures here are going this way. And then you've got this other stuff down here at the bottom, which is very strange. And then we have dunes and other features here, and cracks and stuff in the geology. Now, I'm not saying all this is artificial. What I'm saying is it looks very artificial. Doesn't mean it is necessarily, but this, I'm really struggling to find a normal geological explanation for this. This is one of those worm-like objects, which is actually a depression in the ground. And I understand what we're seeing here are just layers of geology here, and a lot of this may have been, like I said, some kind of thermal vent or something where gases were pushing up, causing bubbles and stuff in the actual layers of mud, which then dried out and solidified and then cracked. Some of these may actually be lava tubes as well that have collapsed. That's also highly possible. But the detail in here, when you look at this stuff, is just unreal. Okay? It's just really, really hard to say that this is completely natural when you look at it up close. It's really, really strange. It says the actual explanation here is blocky deposit on floor. Does that explain what we're looking at? I don't think so. And on the actual NASA page, we can link to the NASA page here. If you follow the NASA link at the top, it would go to the NASA page. There's no text or description of this stuff at all. It has a title, blocky deposit on the floor. That's it. No explanation, nothing. And this is Melas Chasma. This is right in the middle of this sort of channel here, and water would have flown through here at one point. This is right near the middle of it. But I've got these different Gigapans you can check out, and this one's great, but unfortunately it only shows part of this in colour. But the actual colour of this thing is this sort of golden colour. It's amazing, absolutely amazing stuff. And when you see this stuff in full colour, it's just stunning. You've got crazy, crazy stuff on the ground. These are the dunes, or supposedly these are dunes, right here. In between these rocky blocks, or whatever, blocky deposits, as NASA calls them, right? But some of them really do look like giant fungus, like you would see growing at the base of a tree, a rotting tree or something. And here's those worm-like things, which look like giant worm fossils. I'm not sure they are, but they're shaped like that, kind of. And there's loads of them. In the black and white area here, you can see a load more. This has been enhanced, by the way. This had enhanced contrast, so you can see the detail and shapes better. So there we are. I mean, I could go on and on showing you this stuff, but really it's very hard for me to get this stuff across on the screen because it's so large. And just a clip this big would be about 8K or 10K, just this bit here. It really is a struggle for me to explain what this is, which is why I'm showing it to you, because I want you to let me know what you think, because I'm flabbergasted by some of this stuff that I'm finding on the surface. The detail is absolutely incredible. And in the black and white one here, you can see all that quite clearly. You can see that worm thing sticking out there. Absolutely mental. And some of it goes over these and some of it goes under, like a sort of lattice work. Now tell me that doesn't look like a Geiger painting right there, with like a dead alien or something with an arm or something worse hanging over this thing. I mean, what the hell is this stuff? So sometimes the colours can brighten the shadows up, so you can see into the shadows more with this one. I mean, look at this stuff. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know what to say. So let me know what you think. I'll put some clips of this. I'll take some smaller clips and bigger clips and more close-ups of this stuff and put it in, and you can have a good look at it and pause the images in the video and take your own screenshots, or just come to the Gigapan and look at them on there. I've got different versions of the Gigapan here. I've got colour, I've got black and white. I've got this one which I colorized with a brown filter, a light brown filter. And you can actually turn these around as well. You can twist them around and look at these things up the other way. And this thing, whichever way you look at it, looks extremely strange. And like I've said before, a lot of these dunes, I think, actually have vine-like structures that grow through them. NASA just calls them millipede dunes and things like that. But I'm pretty sure that some of them are actually living. And the reason they look like icy dunes is because they spend most of the year frozen over with ice. And they only come to life when they defrost. And then move along the ground and then refreeze and then move along the ground a bit more or grow. And I've shown examples of this before, and it's just insane. And I really think that some of these things are actually living on the ground. And when you see these colours and structures and complex details on the ground, it's hard to believe that there isn't some kind of life here. At least plant life or something like that. So we've got more of these ribs here, look, with dunes coming across in this direction. But depending on which way you look at these, you can sort of flip them around. In some orientations, they look very artificial. And in others, they look kind of more natural. So it does often depend on which way you look at these things. So thanks for watching, everybody. This was a bit of a weird one. I'm not really sure what to call this. This structure here, this weird cross-lattice kind of cocoon-like feature. I just don't know what to call it. So let me know what you think. Give the thumbs up. Please share the video. Please share some of my previous videos. You'll see some crazy, crazy stuff in here, which is just very hard to explain away. It's just dunes and geology. Okay? Like this thing here. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you soon.